Personally, I cannot understand why the idea of an earlier civilization is so willingly rejected. Thanks for highlighting the megalithic sites on Malta. You make some very strong points. Very strong. This would rewrite history, not just for Malta, but for history itself. There are hundreds of comments like this, and thousands of people that have watched this video have walked away thinking that mainstream archaeology is hiding something, that the timeline is wrong, that there was a lost civilization, that Michael, who came to Malta on a holiday, has seen something that decades of professional researchers somehow missed. He hasn't, and I'm going to show you that almost everything in this video is wrong. Not just slightly off, not a matter of interpretation, completely wrong. And wrong in ways that took me minutes to disprove using freely available published research that Michael apparently never looked at. Or he did and decided to ignore it, lying to his audience. This video is just 14 minutes of confident claims with no sources. No peer-reviewed research, no citations, nothing you can check yourself, not a single paper referenced. Just a boy who went on a holiday, filmed himself in front of Gigantea more than the temple itself, came home and made a video telling his audience that the archaeologists who have spent their entire careers studying this place are either incompetent or lying. He opens the video by flaunting his ancient history degree like it gives him some authority. It doesn't. A degree is not a substitute for sources. It is not a substitute for evidence. It does not substitute for doing the actual research. And the fact that someone with a degree in this field got so embarrassingly wrong, whether through laziness or deliberate dishonesty, makes that degree mean absolutely nothing in the context of this video. I live in Malta. Gigantea is just down the road from me, and I find it disrespectful to the history, to the researchers who've devoted their careers to understanding it, and to the audience watching, that someone with that background would do this. You're disrespectfully saying that Maltese history is not fascinating enough, so you need to add mystery to it. I've gone through every single claim that he makes, and what I've found is that nearly everything he says in this video is wrong, and the evidence that proves it is so easy to find, there's no excuse. One thing I will be skipping is the cart ruts. They are a genuinely ongoing debate, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. What I will say is that they do not continue underwater for hundreds of meters. There is no evidence behind that at all. Being skeptical is good. Questioning the mainstream is also good. That is literally what science is. But skepticism without evidence is just conspiracy, and that's all this video is. So I urge you, please, check everything. Not just Michael's claims, but mine too. Every single source I have referenced is in the description. Go and read them. Go and verify what I've said. That is the difference between genuine research and deliberately spreading bullshit to an audience who trusted you.
Somehow, this group of people, supposedly a tiny island population of early farmers, with no wheel, no metal tools and no writing, suddenly, practically overnight, developed incredible skills in megalithic construction.
Do you know what else was built with no wheel, no metal and no writing? Stonehenge, Karnak, Barnanese and Brittany, which predates Gigantea by over 1,000 years by the way. Every major megalithic monument of prehistoric Europe was built without any of those things. That's what the word Neolithic means. This is not a Malta-specific mystery, this is just what Neolithic people did all across Europe for thousands of years.
Gigantea was apparently constructed only 200 years after humans first repopulated the islands, yet these massive megaliths were quarried, precisely cut, transported and perfectly aligned without metal tools, without even draft animals to pull the stones.
Without even draft animals is completely wrong. We know this because cattle bones have been found at every single temple period site that has been excavated, including in midden deposits that predate the temples. That means that there were already cattle in Malta before the megalithic buildings even existed. The same research also states directly that it is possible that they were used during the temple building on Malta. Michael made this claim without checking. It is wrong. Even without the excavation reports, you can just Google it. It takes 2 seconds. And on this 200-year gap, he is pretending that nothing happened in those 200 years. That humans had no prior knowledge, they lived in caves, and one day, they just decided to go ahead and build Gigantea. But the temple period did not begin with Gigantea. It began with the Mjar phase 200 years earlier, producing simpler lobed structures. Gigantea is the result of centuries of accumulated knowledge producing something extraordinary. That is not a mystery.
I mean, where are the precursors? Where is the slow build-up of technology and ideas, the trial and error? You'd expect to see cruder efforts, the development of skills, not immediately jumping to such impressive construction at the very beginning of their civilization.
Before Gigantea, there was the Mjar phase with rounded structures. Before that, the Zabuj phase with rock-cut tombs and small standing stones. And when you look at the temples across the sequence, the designs get progressively more complex. Earlier ones simpler, the later ones more elaborate. The Tarshin complex, the last in the sequence, has multiple chambers and detailed spiral carvings covering the stonework. That is a build-up. That is trial and error. It is published in the record and has been for decades. He asks where are the precursors like it's a question nobody has an answer to. It has an answer, a very easy answer, he just didn't even look.
If the mainstream view is to be believed, then this leap represents the fastest development of construction technology and societal organisation ever seen in human history, and it simply doesn't make sense.
What comparative analysis of global monument building traditions across all of human history are you drawing on? What dataset? What methodology? There isn't one. He just made it up because it sounds impressive. This is not a finding, it's not based on anything.
And it's not like they could have brought these ideas with them. Even with its accepted date, Gigantea is by far the oldest megalithic site in the Mediterranean, and was the oldest on Earth until the discovery of the even more mysterious Göbekli Tepe in Turkey.
Barnanese in Brittany dates to around 4850 BC at its earliest phase. That is over 1,000 years before Gigantea. There are megalithic funerary structures across Atlantic Europe and Iberia that are older. The defensible claim is that Malta's temples are among the earliest freestanding stone temples of their specific type. That's a real and impressive distinction, but I guess it wasn't impressive enough. Then there's Göbekli Tepe, which dates to 9 to 10,000 BC, roughly 6,000 years before Gigantea. Michael uses it as part of an argument that Maltese builders couldn't have inherited ideas from elsewhere. That argument requires these sites to be roughly contemporaneous. They're not even in the same conversation.
The orthodox view claims that over the next 1,000 years in total, this culture were absolutely prolific in their temple building, somehow building at least 30 megalithic temple sites all across the tiny Maltese islands. This is an entirely new site roughly every 33 years, and that's only the ones we've discovered. There could be more. So why did this culture appear, immediately begin constructing astoundingly impressive megalithic temples, consistently pumping one out every few decades, and then suddenly disappear with no sign of conquest or war?
Not all of these temples were the size of Gigantea. The smallest recorded is just 6.5 meters long, and the population during this period was between 5 to 10,000 people, at a density more than 10 times that of mainland Europe at the same time. 30 structures of varying sizes over 1,000 years is not a lot for a society like that. And they didn't just vanish. Michael says it like the people just disappeared overnight. But the skeletal remains show a society that had been struggling for a long time. Deteriorating teeth, vitamin deficiencies in children's bones, generations getting worse off. And the soil cores show exactly why. Intensive farming had been wearing the land down since about 2500 BC. They had been farming the same small islands for centuries, and eventually the land couldn't support them anymore. The archaeology follows that process the whole way through. There was no just vanishing overnight.
You'd think Malta was simply too small to sustain the necessary civilization that could develop the enormously sophisticated construction techniques found in the temples, and we see no evidence for the large-scale domestic agriculture that surely would have been needed to support the people who achieved this.
The Fraxis project found evidence of agriculture so extensive it was effectively the downfall of the entire civilization. Crops, livestock, and large-scale land clearance across the islands. They farmed so much they destroyed their own soil, and when a drought hit on top of that, it was over. They farmed themselves into extinction, Michael. What the fuck are you talking about, no evidence?
The Hypogeum is a multi-level subterranean structure carved directly into solid limestone. It has 3 levels, and the deepest reaches about 12 meters underground. This is deeper than most modern subway systems. This architecture has no known precedent, and is dated to the very beginning of this culture's arrival on Malta.
He highlighted the date which the earliest remains were found and tried to sell it as if that's when the Hypogeum was built. But what he's not showing you is the Wikipedia page literally says that the structure may have originated as a natural cave expanded over time, which would mean that the remains that he is referring to are older than the Hypogeum as we know it today. Wikipedia also dates the Hypogeum to the Saflieni phase, but he's not showing you that either. So his "they built this entire thing right at the start" framing is just cherry-picking the oldest remains found and presenting it as if they built the Hypogeum all in one go, right at the start. They didn't. And he even got the depth wrong. It's 10.6 meters, not 12. But even if we give him the 12 meters, he is still wrong. Most subway systems are actually 20 to 50 meters below road level. The Hypogeum is shallower than most subway systems, not deeper. And no known precedent? Heritage Malta's own description states that the Hypogeum chambers deliberately mirror above-ground temples. The precedent is the above-ground temples. They just carved an above-ground temple underground.
And is this really possible with stone chisels?
Yes, it is. You make it out as if they're digging into granite. They were digging into Globigerina limestone, which has a hardness scale of between 3 to 4. Among other tools, they specifically used flint and chert blades, which has a hardness scale from 6.5 to 7. Hard tools break soft rock. It's very simple. It's really not that difficult.
Even more mysteriously, some of the chambers are carved to create an acoustic resonance effect. A voice used at a frequency of 110 Hz resonates throughout the entire underground complex, creating a powerful, vibrating echo that can be felt as much as heard. This acoustic phenomenon is thought to have induced trance-like states or altered consciousness.
First of all, the paper that he showed on screen that he doesn't even have access to does not support what he is saying. He never read this paper. This paper states that the prominent frequency peaks include all that are listed on screen, not 110 Hz. Also, in the same paragraph, it states that this is in the middle complex, not the entire hypogeum. Then he shows two figures from a different, earlier 2015 article. This is the graph that he showed. Out of all of the graphs on the paper that would have been better, he specifically chose this one. This is just a graph showing the baseline sound of the hypogeum, which they state as nothing to remark, just a little noise from the neighbourhood. He showed a baseline test because he doesn't know what a baseline test is and he doesn't know what the fuck he is talking about. He just searched on Google hypogeum 110 Hz, saw this graph, saved it and used it without ever reading the caption that is below the image. Neither of these papers have anything to do with trance-like states or altered consciousness. He is just shoving papers in your face, papers that he has never read, and graphs that he doesn't even know how to read. It is embarrassing. And none of this makes the hypogeum less interesting, because the real measurements are already amazing. In the Oracle room, they report a strong double resonance around 68 to 70 Hz and 114 Hz. And they report sounds reverberating or echoing as much as 7 to 8 seconds after the sound stops. That's incredible. That's interesting. That's real. You don't need to add trance states or altered consciousness or mind control to make this interesting.
Some human remains found here were skulls with unusual elongation and cranial features. Don't panic, I'm not going to claim they're aliens, but it adds to the mystery all the same.
Heritage Malta published a direct response to this one. Their conclusion was that the skulls are no more elongated than modern crania. Sir Temi Zamit classified some as of the long-headed type, a standard early 20th century craniology term, and that phrase has been taken out of context ever since. The skulls fall within normal human variation. I'm not going to claim they're aliens, and then he immediately implies exactly that. He plants the idea, signals to the audience exactly what they want to hear, and then he keeps his hands clean by technically not saying the words. This is a rhetorical trick, and it's a deliberate one, and I'm pointing it out because he uses it more than once.
Only a few radiocarbon samples have been taken, and crucially, only from on top of or around the megaliths, not beneath. However, only having dates from on or around the megaliths doesn't really prove their age. The temples could have already been there. Archaeologists also analyse pottery styles, tools and figurines. Just because pottery was found from this period doesn't prove that this was when the temples were constructed. It just proves that people lived here at this time. There's no reason to suggest the culture responsible for the pottery couldn't have found these sites already there, inherited them, and used them in their own society.
This is not how archaeological dating works. Dating the Maltese temples is built from stratified sequences. Sealed layers inside structures, floor deposits, fills between building phases, all systematically dated across multiple sites. The pottery styles, figurines, and stone tools all change together in the same direction over time, consistently across an entire island, across different excavations, across different research teams working decades apart. That just does not happen by accident. But let's take his alternative seriously for a moment. He's suggesting that the Neolithic farmers arrived and simply found these temples already standing, built by some earlier civilization. That earlier civilization quarried and constructed all of this and left behind absolutely nothing. No tools, no bones, no pottery, no organic material from the construction process. They built some of the most impressive prehistoric structures on Earth and somehow did it without leaving a single physical trace of themselves. That's not skepticism. That's not a more open-minded reading of the evidence. That's just making up a civilization because you don't like the one the evidence points to.
On top of this, some geologists have raised eyebrows at the extent of erosion on certain structures, especially temples like Menadra, Hypogeum and Gigantea. Some megaliths show signs of deep weathering, including rounded edges, pitted surfaces, and extensive limestone flaking. Critics argue this level of erosion would typically take much longer than 6,000 years, especially considering Malta's relatively dry climate.
Name one. Name the geologist, name the paper, name the journal, name a critic, name anything. He can't, because they don't exist. Some geologists and critics argue is how you make something up and make it sound like it has experts behind it, but it doesn't. The temples are built from Globigerina limestone, which is a notably soft, porous rock that loses around 80% of its compressive strength when wet, and erodes quickly from salt spray, wet-dry cycling, and biological growth. Dramatic weathering over a few thousand years is exactly what this rock does. The erosion doesn't mean the temples are older, it means that they are made out of soft rock.
It seems to me that the only reason these temples are dated to this period is that they can't be dated any earlier without rewriting the established timeline of human civilization.
What are you talking about? The mainstream has already rewritten the timeline multiple times. When Sir Temi Zamit, and please excuse my pronunciation, first dated the temples in the early 20th century, scholars thought his dates were too old and they proposed pushing them forward by 500 years. Then radiocarbon testing came back and actually proved Zamit was right. And guess what? The dates changed. The Fraxis project then generated 155 new radiocarbon dates which refined the chronology further. The mainstream does not protect the timeline. It built it and it keeps updating when there is new evidence presented. Anyone with basic knowledge, and especially someone with an ancient history degree, should know this.
Some ruts even mysteriously run straight off cliffs and continue underwater, stretching for hundreds of meters beneath the sea. This links to the mystery of the underwater temples, structures off the coast of Malta that some researchers believe may be ancient megalithic sites, now submerged. Divers have reported formations that resemble large stone blocks arranged in unnatural patterns, possibly foundations or walls. Mainstream archaeology disputes this, suggesting they might be natural, but others argue that the symmetry and alignment point to human construction.
Some researchers, oh Michael, it's just one researcher and you know who it is, and that's why you're not mentioning his name. I'm going to tell you who this researcher is because Michael wouldn't dare. His name is Hubert Zeitelmeier. He is a retired German real estate investor with no archaeological credentials. His claimed professorship is from something that he calls the University of Quantum Dynamics, which is not a real institution. He just made it up. In 1999, Zeitelmeier announced at a paleoastronauts conference that he had found an underwater temple off of Malta. When people asked how he knew where to look, he explained that he had been directed to the site by his primeval ancestors, specifically a god and the goddess Ashtar Tara. I don't even know how to pronunciate that. Queen of Atlantis. That is from his own published account. That is the researcher that Michael is using. Maltese archaeologists who investigated found no evidence of megalithic construction. Other divers reported that the boulders appeared to be modern material that had been illegally dumped. The Archaeological Institute of America reviewed his claims and found his chronology incoherent. There is no peer-reviewed study, no excavation, no dating, nothing.
However, researchers Georgia Gaius and Frank Ventura found that their axes are not random, but exactly correspond to the rising and setting points of the star Sirius over thousands of years. Due to the precession of the equinoxes, a slow wobble of Earth's axis, Sirius's position on the horizon shifts over millennia. This suggests that the temples were constructed over a span of nearly 5,000 years, from around 9,150 BC to 4,250 BC, each aligned to Sirius's position at the time.
Argy's and Ventura's 1980 monograph is real. It's in the University of Malta's open access repository, and just like all of my other sources, it's in the description. They correlated temple orientations with astronomical positions calculated for the accepted archaeological dates, the 4th to 3rd millennium BC. No 9150 BC, no Sirius pushing construction back to the Mesolithic. That is not their work. The 9150 BC hypothesis comes from Lenny Reedike, a self-published author whose 2019 article on grahamhancock.com explicitly states that she set aside standard archaeological dating and uses the precession of Sirius to generate her own ideas. Michael took that hypothesis from grahamhancock.com and put it in the mouths of two University of Malta researchers who never made that claim. Go and read both. They are not the same argument, they are not even close. He took real academics and used their names to give credibility to something that they never said. How fucking dishonest and disgusting is that?
Now, this date of 11,000 years ago is, I'm sure, very interesting to many of you, as it aligns perfectly with Göbekli Tepe, the Younger Dryas, Plato's description of Atlantis, and many other aspects of the increasingly popular theory for a lost civilization of the Ice Age. Now, what I've said in this video is by no means proof of this, but I do think that the accepted timeline of Malta's ancient history doesn't make sense.
And there it is. All of that building up to this, exactly what his audience wants. Malta gets thrown into the lost civilization category alongside Göbekli Tepe and Atlantis. Fantastic. He even says it himself, that what he said is not proof. Yeah, that's the most honest thing that he has said in his entire video. It's not proof of anything. It's just a bunch of unsourced claims that are just completely wrong, and one case where he took a real academic's work and put words in their mouth that they never said. Being very generous, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I want to believe that he just didn't do the research, that he came here for a week for a holiday, got excited, went home, and made this without ever researching anything. Because the other possibility, that he did the research, saw the evidence, and decided to tell his audience that it doesn't exist anyway, that's not something I want to believe that an ancient history graduate would do. The actual history here in Malta is worth your time. The temples are real, the research is real, and it's fascinating without any of this bullshit added to it. These were real people who built something that's still standing 5,500 years later, and their story, including how it eventually fell apart, is just remarkable on its own. I said it at the start of the video, but I want to say it again. Don't just take my word for any of this either. Everything that I've said in this video has a source, and they are all in the description. Go and check them. That's the whole point of citing things. Don't just trust anyone online who makes claims without showing you where they're from. That goes for everyone, including me. If someone won't show you their sources, that's the first thing that you should question. That should be a big red flag for you. Okay, I'm done. My next video will be actually related to ancient history. I'm currently doing research for it, which is on PTSD in ancient history and the ongoing debate among scholars. See you then. Thank you for watching.